Good evening to Julian Council, who is there and ready to go on Friday night there in Germany. Guten Nacht, Julian. How's the experience been? What's it been like following the Panthers there in Munich?
Yes, guten Nacht, Nick. It has been awesome so far to be here in Munich the last couple of days. Just coming back from practice earlier this afternoon. Of course, morning there in Charlotte, as Dave Canal spoke to the media about the experience as the Panthers got in this morning, and they're all still trying to get on that time clock here as it's a 6 hour difference. And I know personally, it was a lot. I only got 1 hour of sleep on my flight over on Tuesday. And then to hear from Dave Canales, he got 5 hours. Ask him for some tips, man, because the melatonin was not enough for me. But it's been cool to see how the Panther legends and David Tepper and all of them were at the Panthers pub here in town. That's going to be going on all weekend long. Just a cool experience for this organization, this franchise, to have his first trip to Germany to face off against a team in the Giants who, I don't know, maybe they get a win against on Sunday.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. First, take me through practice, or as they call it over there in soccer, training. Where were the Panthers training for this game on Sunday, and what was the environment like?
Yeah, they were training at Bayern Munich, who will be hosting the match. It's the game. I'm match here. I am in Europe saying match. I'm talking about a football game. They'll be hosting, of course, at the Allianz Arena. But it was at the Bayern Munich Academy where they have their youth teams play, and that's where they had practice at. Really cool facility. The media setup had us at something called the 1900, which was effectively a bar that they had just for us to hang out in as we had the press conferences there. I'm understand the Giants apparently are at the Bayern Munich first team facility, which I'm trying to figure out how that's the case. The Panthers are the home team. Shouldn't they be at what possibly could be the nicer facility, even though both of them are probably extremely nice? I know certainly where they're at today was a cool scene. So they were inside where the Academy Stadium was, having the media availability there for practice, and cool little setup that they have there today on Friday.
Right. The Panthers have not won two straight games since Steve Wilkes was let's not even call him interim. He was the head coach
Yeah.
in 2022, and there was a bye week in between. So this would be the first time since 2021 that the Panthers won games in consecutive weeks, I think, if they're able to do this on Sunday morning, our time. What are your immediate thoughts on the matchup with the New York Giants, who had the lowest scoring average?
Wow. Yeah. Can't believe it's been that long since we've seen back to back wins. And that had been the Lions game and the Seahawks game, I think, on the
Yep.
road are able to win. And the Seahawks back then had a quarterback coach named Dave Canales, who's now the head coach here in Carolina. Like, that's how long it's been, folks, since we've seen back to back wins from this organization. I think they got a good chance to win this game. It's going to come down to protection. Brady Christensen will once again get to start at left tackle, going up against Brian Burns, who we know famously this offseason was traded to the Giants after the Panthers balked at giving him the kind of deal the Giants eventually gave him. That's going to pay him $30 million per year over the life of that deal. Then Cade Mays back in there at center once again, and he played really well last week, graded out highly on Pro Football Focus. And not too long ago, was actually on the Giants practice squad before the Panthers re-signed him and brought him back on the active roster as they had some issues with Austin Corbett out for the rest of the season with that bicep tear. He's going up against Dexter Lawrence. Like, those are going to be the two matchups I'm looking at on Sunday. If Carolina can have that to a stalemate, because I don't know if they necessarily win that matchup against those two premier talents on that defensive side of the ball for New York. If they're able to have a stalemate there, that can be their path to victory on Sunday.
Okay, Bryce Young, Dave Canales, it seems, is still learning how to communicate who is the starter, when he communicates who is the starter. So he said the obvious on Wednesday that Bryce will start. First of all, why do you think he's kind of been handling this that way, especially with Bryce back in the
Yeah, it's interesting. I do think it is fair once he went to Andy Dalton and the Panthers did have a little bit of success there offensively. I think it is fair to want to see Andy healthy before making a affirmative decision on who is going to be the quarterback. But when you consider all the factors, Andy just turned 37 a week and a half ago. He's not under contract next year. Bryce Young, the Panthers, we all know what they gave up to get Bryce. He's only made 20 career starts, and I don't know if that's enough here in Carolina to definitively say he is or he is not the quarterback for the future. And I think these next 8 games should be for Carolina trying to evaluate to see whether he should be the guy in 2025 or it makes the most sense to move on this offseason. And typically when we see quarterbacks like Bryce Young, like Anthony Richardson up there in Indianapolis benched, they're typically gone. Mac Jones, he was traded away. Trey Lance was traded away. We have seen Zach Wilson get traded away. Like, that typically is how things end up. But this is a second chance for Bryce Young. I don't really know why Dave Canales has been hesitant to name him other than maybe he's not a firm believer. But we'll see the next 8 games. At least we'll see on Sunday what belief he has in Bryce Young as far as the play calling goes, and if Bryce can continue to stack up a good performance after coming off one of the better games he's had in his career last Sunday against New Orleans.
Yeah, GM Dan Morgan said didn't want to trade Bryce at the deadline, still don't want to trade Bryce, but like Dave Canales won't commit to him for even beyond this week. Clearly, we saw progress last week. It was his best game, best start of the year. Where did you see that progress, and like what makes you think it could be built upon against, another opponent with a better defensive line?
I love his decisiveness in his decision making, not being hesitant and getting the football out. And that's actually something that Dave Canales brought up after the Denver game, that he liked the way that Bryce played fast. And we did not see that in week 1 and week 2. We did not see that a lot of portions of last season, whether it was Thomas Brown or Frank Reich calling the plays. We did see that from Bryce against the Broncos. We saw it even more so against the Saints. And when he dropped back on that 3rd and 10, had to have it and cut it loose over the middle to Xavier Legette for 26 yards. Like, that's the kind of throw I remember watching him throw at Alabama when he won the Heisman Trophy, and the year after that when he was able to carry that team offensively. That's really, I was really impressed by Bryce. And also just the toughness that he showed. He was not afraid to throw his body out there on the line when he was trying to get to the goal line on that 9-yard run, try and score a touchdown. That gains respect from his teammates. When you listen to Robert Hunt talk about how well Bryce played, when you listen to Chuba Hubbard say that he played his ass off, you see that respect from Bryce, from his teammates now more than you saw it, I believe, at the beginning of the season, where there's probably some hesitation from those guys about whether he was the right guy. And certainly the way they responded once Andy Dalton took over made you feel like they had more belief in Andy as their leader than they had in Bryce Young, even after voting him as a team captain. So that confidence, that decisiveness with decision-making, not putting the ball in harm's way, at least last week, that was more on Legette than it was on Bryce. That's what I really like to see from him the last couple of weeks. And hopefully for his sake and for the Panthers' sake, that will carry over to Sunday. And if Canales sticks with him the following 7 games after that.
How confident are you in the 3 rookie pass catchers, I guess, that they will all be part of the young core on offense beyond this season, regardless of whether it's Bryce Young throwing on the ball or not?
I think we've seen plenty of bright spots so far from Xavier Legette. We have not seen him have that game-breaking speed yet. Has not been in that kind of situation. Yeah, there have been a couple of drops. That comes with it. He's still someone who's trying to get used to this level. But the touchdowns in the red zone, like, when's the last time the Panthers had a legitimate red zone threat like that with that kind of body type who they could always depend on? It's Greg Olsen back in 2019, really 2018, the last time he was even healthy here in Carolina. I guess 2017 was the last time he's healthy as a Panther with all the foot injuries that he suffered. Having that with Xavier Legette, you love to see, especially for someone they traded up to the first, and it was only 1 pick they moved up more to go up there to get him in the first round, but to have that confidence in him that they felt like they would need to utilize 50-year option down the road, he has shown that promise early on in his career. Jalen Coker, this is a dude that a lot of teams are interested in, and he decided to come to Carolina because of the project they pitched him, and he was cut. They took a risk, were able to get him back on the practice squad, and he stepped up. And I would love to see him get the ball in his hands even more. And there was talk about him not having a ton of speed. I thought on Sunday, that 3rd down and 7 where they threw out to the flat to him, and he was able to make some tackles, almost tiptoe to the end zone. That's some playmaking ability we have not seen a lot. And speaking of playmaking ability, we have not really seen that much. I know the Panthers showed the Tommy Tremble hurdle last year, but JT Sanders' hurdle last week was something we have never seen from a tight end other than Tremble, I guess. But then to put on the Jets after that as well, that's a guy who I really like coming out of Texas. And to see those 3 pass catchers, especially 2 of your top 4 picks, have that kind of impact early on, that bodes well to the future, which is why it's great also that Bryce Young is back out there. And the hope is that with those 3 guys and Bryce, they can gain some continuity with each other, some confidence, and that can be the future of the Panthers offense. But we'll have to see if that's how it plays out.
Right. How about the future as in Sunday, and will Jonathan Brooks be available on Sunday? He's been activated onto the 53. Everybody wants to see it. Will it happen in Munich, in your opinion? And what did Dave Canales say about that?
Yeah, I think it's going to happen. Dave has played it like he's played the last couple of weeks. We still need to see a couple things. And I think it's a little gamemanship too. They want to wait until probably Sunday before they're going to really announce whether he's going to be active as far as on the active the roster for Sunday. Because I mean, he's already active in the 53, but they got to people don't know, they got to keep some guys inactive. But I would expect that he will play, and I expect he'll play a decent sized role. Chuba Hubbard, who they just paid a lot of money to, will continue to be that number 1 back. but I'm expecting all those snaps that we've seen in Miles Sanders, especially in the passing game. Those are going to start going over to Jonathan Brooks, which they should, as he's a part of their future. And I'm thinking probably after the season, Miles Sanders will not be a part of the future in Carolina. So Dave Canales didn't want to necessarily say yes or no. They're still looking at that, still looking to see whether DJ Wonnum will make his debut as a Panther. Same thing with Jaden Crumedy as well. And then potentially Jordan Fuller, who's missed out since week 3 with that hamstring injury stuff from that loss, or that win rather, against the Raiders. All still questionable, but I don't think there's much question that Jonathan Brooks will be a part of the game on Sunday.
All right, you mentioned Chuba Hubbard. He earns a 4-year contract extension, could be worth up to 37 million with 15 million guaranteed. I thought it was a good piece of business, Julian, but a lot of the people nationally and even some of my buddies around the league were texting me like, "What are they doing?" And I'm like, "Are the Panthers not allowed to have 2 decent running backs? Like, what is all the blowback on this contract for?"
Yeah, I have plenty of people hit me up as well, because on the pod, I've always said about running backs, you pay them federal minimum wage. No overtime, no holiday pay. You use them, you abuse them, and then you lose them. It's just been a replacement level position where it's not been that difficult to find backs. But when you look at the situation here in Carolina, I'm going to go against my principle here as far as it goes with running backs and whether you pay them or not. We have seen how with Miles Sanders, that did not work out for the Panthers. That with Chuba Hubbard, is a guy who's been homegrown. He's been in situations where he had to take over for Christian McCaffrey when McCaffrey was out with that hamstring his rookie year. He was a part of that dynamic duo with him and Deontay Foreman, and really was still the number 2 guy. Then last year was expected to be the backup, then was able to take over that role, and he's ran with it into the season. But really, Canales talked about Chuba being there to help establish the foundation that he's trying to set, the culture that he wants to set here in Carolina, and that he's been on board since day one, when some guys maybe have not been as much as he would have liked, and that Chuba's worked his way in his spot. You know how they want to value running the football, even if we have not seen the stubbornness that I think we all expected heading into the season. The Panthers can have 2 backs, and they have a guy in Jonathan Brooks who they're going to likely get back on Sunday. And I think the 2 of them can complement each other well. And the fact that Chuba Hubbard has worked his tail off too, as far as a pass catcher, where he's the Panthers' leading receiver right now, folks. That just shows how far he's come, where early on, guy needed to hit the jugs machine. He did it. He's earned his money. And I think as far as leadership wise, that's the kind of guy you want to have in your locker room. As far as paying a running back, which is really going to be 15 million guaranteed, it's not my favorite move, but I understand why the organization did it. And it's hard to argue considering where they're at and where they're trying to go.
Julian, I talked about the Giants offense having the lowest scoring average in the league. Of course, we have to end this with talking about Carolina's defense, who is approaching borderline historically bad status in
Yeah.
terms of points per game allowed. Now, they sealed the win Sunday against the Saints. Do you think this defense can kind of get a little bit better and not approach some of those numbers we've seen from those early 80s 19 Colts teams that we're now thinking about in terms of scoring average?
Yeah, I think it's possible. And Dave brought it up here on Friday about those 3 stops they had at the end of the game and how that was just progress for that defensive unit that's been banged up. When you don't have Shaq Thompson for the rest of the season, you don't have Derek Brown, when, of course, you lose Brian Burns and Frankie Louv in the offseason, you're going to have the kind of issues that they've had so far this year. But knowing that DJ Wonnum could be coming back on Sunday and having him and Jadeveon Clowney as the 2 edge rushers moving forward, and Charles Harris played one of his best games of the season last week against Denver and had that key sack with the Clowney pressure in that final drive for New Orleans on Sunday to help them win that game. Maybe you have a better edge rushing group there. You at least have another talented player who you know can get after the passer. And then when you also add in just how they're getting healthier with Jordan Fuller potentially coming back, and got Dane Jackson, who's officially the number 3 corner behind Mike Jackson and J.C. Horn. I just think that they're getting healthier. They're going to be in a situation where they've been together longer in this scheme. And when you're facing off against the Giants and Daniel Jones, who has a proclivity to throw the ball to the other team, I do think they have an opportunity to really stack up 2 good performances on the defensive side of the ball as well.
Julian, Danka, and Chus.
Danka, thank you.